secrets here, but it's just, I mean, it is value. I mean, I've taken 4 years, you know, to do a lot of this, and
Right.
it's, there's a ton of lessons learned, which I do want to share, because I think this is a really important step for DPC. I think it's, I really think it's where we need to be to solidify. So
I agree.
yeah.
So you're free to roam.
Okay, now we roam. Oh, you know, you got to be careful, because you know, so one thing we just talked about, I'll just reiterate, is that employers really need choice from the type of doctor as well as the geography. So it is nice to say we have, you know, multiple locations and these different doctors that the employees can choose from. There's a big component of legal and compliance. This is where, again, if you're working with a broker or a TPA that really understands DPC, is critical, but there's not that many out there, to be very honest. It gets down to the point where the brokers may think this is a good idea, the TPAs, because again, that's who you're going to help work with some of these larger employers. It has to be coordinated in what's called an SPD, which is a document that basically tells what all the employee offerings are, and it has to be spelled out and coordinated. So it's a full benefits coordination, and I'll go into a lot more detail if you want me to, but there's a lot of laws that you have to follow when it comes to employer benefit plans. ERISA law is probably the biggest one, but you also have the Department of Labor and others. So it's really specific of how you offer DPC, and you has to be offered equally to all in the plan. The summary plan description is what the SPD is. And then it's a little bit more complex when it comes to what else are you offering with. Are you offering with a high deductible health plan? Are you offering it with other types of benefits? And then they talk about how the fee is split. Is the employee going to pay for it all? Is it split between the employee and employer? And there's different compliance issues there, depending upon the other offerings. So that other really large piece is that compliance piece, and that took us a very long time. And we have somebody actually on general counsel who is an ERISA lawyer for our network. So all of that not only has to be represented in all of the contracts that you have, because you'll have a contract with the employer and a contract with every employee, because as we know, it's the direct relationship. All of this sounds complex, and it can be, but we figured it out. You know, we've gotten through all of it. But that's why we decided that we actually needed to have ongoing legal counsel, and not just, originally we had somebody write our contracts and write our things and make sure that we were compliant, because there's the federal laws and then the state laws. But with every new employer that you bring on, there are nuances and complexities of what they're doing with the rest of their benefits plan. And even if they're less than 50, honestly, because we think, oh, that's simple, they don't have to be, they're not under the law, they actually are still under co-fiduciary compliance laws that have to be followed. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of HR people, especially in the smaller companies, don't understand this. And that's okay, sort of. So there's the first idea is just, is it acceptable and excitable to the employee, and how do you market that and sell that, and how do you help the company engage the employee, because it's different. The second part is, the legal and compliance issues, and then the third part is really the administration of. So the network basically is there to affiliate with the doctors, who are going to be part of the network, and make sure that, we make sure there's a certain quality so that we can represent this is what we're selling. These docs are good. We know these docs. For us, there's a whole affiliate process that our affiliates go through. There's a contract with the affiliates, and they have to agree that they are going to provide this very specific set of care to these employees. So you can't say that this office is going to have hours from only on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and in the contract it says we're offering full primary care Monday through Friday. Now it could be that you're off on Thursday, that's fine, but it can't be somebody that's way off base. Or, hey Pat.
Welcome, Pat.
He's connecting in. Hey,
Hey,
Pat.
Pat.
He's muted.
Yeah, you're muted, Pat.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yep.
Okay, I was looking all over my computer for this thing, and it only shows up on my cell phone.
Perseverance.
So I'm on the small screen.
Okay. Makes you look thinner.
That's a good idea. I love this thing.
That's
So
good.
Amy was just beginning, and we are recording this session. So just so that you're aware of that.
Okay, sorry to mess up the recording. Hello.
That's okay. We're not going to share this broadly. So it's kind of a insider sort of thing. So Amy, why don't you go
Coastal
ahead?
Highlands. So Phil and I, what we were just kind of going through is what I've noticed over the last so many years of creating the network and then working with the network that are key factors. And again, this will be good for my teaching. I kind of re-listen, see if I'm good, Phil. The first one is making sure that there's enough geography and choice for the employees. So we have many employees that are joined just to my own personal practice because they're, you know, a small salon or a Montessori school with 9 teachers, and they're fine just saying, I just want to go to this one location. But then anybody who is bigger, who we know it's important that they offer multiple locations, that's who we make sure we go through the network. And so it is both an easier sell as well as obviously if you bring on a 500 person client, you know, in your 2-person practice, it's really hard to get everybody in on a timely fashion to say, yes, we're here to take care of you. And oh, by the way, I can't get you in as a new patient for 4 months. So from that, you know, what's your value, what you're selling, what you're saying, I'm going to do. We at our network say that we're going to get everybody in within 30 days because we don't want people to pay for something and not get the service. And we want people to engage with us right away to say, yes, we are your primary care doctors. And the only way I'm going to really be effective at helping improve your health as well as lowering costs for your company, because that's kind of the 2 points that the companies are looking at, is to actually bring you in and care for you. So we kind of, we put that in and that's like what our affiliates agree to. So our affiliates tell us how many patients they think they can take, knowing where they are, you know, in their panels. And then as we bring in contracts, we're in constant communication with the affiliates. So Pat, I talked a lot about, or a little bit touched on the whole compliance, ERISA law, Department of Labor laws, all these things that have to be taken into account when you're working in employer benefits and creating or being put into a summary plan design. So that plan document that the brokers and TPAs should be doing. But like I said, there's very minimal knowledge here. And what I have found is you'll work a client for a year and a half, you'll get people real excited. And then when it comes times to renew, the brokers are kind of like, and again, this is why I want to keep this private because I want to be very candid. Many of the brokers are like, I'm not getting a fee out of this. And I'm getting plenty of fees by selling what my current status is. So, okay, this is great, but we're really not ready for this yet. Or we think it's too much of a change. We don't want to tell our patients to switch doctors, you know, tell our employers to switch doctors. So there's been plenty of times in the last 3 years that I've come up to the end. I mean, where the CEO has come to me, we've worked all through this. We go back to the broker, we get all the way there. And then the broker's like, yeah, we can't do this. And then I'm not included in the next 2 meetings. And then the CEO goes, yeah, it just doesn't work at our plan. And I'm like, okay. So again, what I have found and what I was talking to Phil about is that we have actually brought into our network one of the top lawyers, a legal counsel, who will actually sit with the TPAs and the brokers and say, here's how this all works, compliant both with DOL law, ERISA law, and things like that. And I'll be honest with you, she knows much more than they do. And it's not the doctor telling them that their business plan is not sound, or they're, you know, or questioning something along the lines of their benefits plan. Even though, like I was talking to Phil, I've done a lot of work prior to this in consulting work with brokers and healthcare reform, and looking at companies, you know, doing full analytics on companies' spends to see where they're spending their money, things like that. So that's some of my past. So I kind of understood a lot of that background. But it wasn't very effective when I tried to be the one who helped put these plans together. there was some resistance, I'll say.
Can
So
you,
mhm.
can you share that lawyer's name?
Sure, her name is Kat Nichols.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So so she's been the one we've been working with most recently. And well, I shouldn't say most recently, she's the one I've been working with for the last 8 years. So it's not been recent. Anyway, it's been a long time in coming to get all of this set up, but that I think is the important backbones of a network is, and then there's definitely administrative work. So making sure that I know you said you were talking to a lot of people. It is a separate company, which I think is important because there's well, I'm sorry, as I was saying, you kind of sit in the middle. You have your affiliates here, and you need to make sure you're, supporting your affiliates. Our affiliates, it's nothing to join. We don't charge our affiliates anything to join. And then we support them in multiple ways. And then we get the contract. So we go out and we talk to the employers and work through all of the stuff we just talked about to get the contracts. And then we administer the contracts, both from the financial transaction as well as then some data and data exchange between the two. So the goal is just to make it simple for the employer to say, okay, I need to pay one person. My employees can go to a lot of different places. They have choices. It's all compliant. It's not complicated for me. It's simple. My broker understands it. It's within all the compliance laws. And then after the fact, there's not a lot of hassle with, okay, you said that I was going to get these people in and this person's not, getting this person in, or this person went dark, et cetera. So it's just kind of keeping all systems working so the doctors can do the doctoring and get more patients, because we really want to keep feeding very stable people into the panels of the docs, which employer patients tend to be very stable. And then we do a lot with so what we've been able to do is get vaccines through our network. So that's been another big bonus because we could never get vaccines on our own. So now we're able to contract and get vaccines out to all of these affiliates. So they're able to do vaccinations. We're sharing best practices. We're during COVID, I'm running out of gloves. Did anybody else have gloves? So there's a nice inherent community there that is helpful, of like-minded docs. So I mean, there's just multiple layers. And then, on the other side, we're getting these employers who are, really happy. And so it's definitely starting to pick up, which is good.
Great.
Yeah. So I think, again, I haven't done this whole discussion. I always talk about DPC or I talk about employer benefits, but just kind of like how our network works. And I can show you, I can share my screen now. This is what I think, if I can share my screen, I'm sure I can.
I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Thank you, sir. Okay, it's this one.
There you go.
So here's some of our marketing material. So this is our network's called TRIDPC. And the other thing, just to let you, think about, is I've got people in California, people in 4 other states that are considering joining our network. So again, another option, if you guys think this is great, but you don't want to put the business end into that, I'm happy to talk to you about that, because one of the things that we were talking about is we can actually go anywhere and support docs. I just talked to him, and remind me, I'll give you the name of the person. Actually, Phil, I think you know this person, Christina King.
Yes.
Okay, so I've been talking to Christina, and she's like, I think she's really working on getting a really good broker product together. So she said she has some employers that are up, north of me. So I said, we were, because Larry had mentioned, I said, well, we're planning on talking soon. So have you been in contact with Christina?
I have not in a few years, so
Okay.
I guess I need to reach out to her again.
Yeah. I thought she mentioned your name, or I mentioned your name or something, because she said she has some employers up near the area. They're looking for a DPC product. And I said, yes, DPCs are all over the place. This is exciting. Because she was saying, could we use our network? And I said, we can definitely use our network. And then what my plans are is if she has an employer, let's say like in Pennsylvania, you know, and they have 6 people in Cincinnati and 6 people here. I'm like, I can go find DPC docs in Pennsylvania and say, hey, would you want to be an affiliate? I can bring you these people from this employer under our affiliate agreement and put these people right into your practice, you know, for the people that are outside of an offering. That you know what I mean? I'm saying if they can't work directly with employers, they don't maybe have the right contracts or the, you know, things that are set up to do so. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's why I wasn't sure with Larry, if you guys, I didn't know where you were in looking at setting up your own network, or you were just kind of in the discovery phase of what's available. Because there's a lot. I shouldn't say
I
there's
think
a
it's
lot.
fair to say, Amy, that we're in the discovery phase.
Okay.
I mean, Pat and Phil know each other well. There are other people in the area who are acquainted, but aren't as knowledgeable about DPC as well as about you know, the other folks in the area. So my thought was, since you've worked out the network possibilities, if that could extend to the people in the Miami Valley area who are interested, that might be a really good thing. That was sort of my general thought.
Okay. Yeah. So again, we can definitely easily talk about expanding our network with you know everybody out there, and then keep working, because I know there are employers out there that are already looking. So that's exciting, because sometimes it's a supply and demand. Like you've got the employers, but you don't have the docs. You've got the docs, but you can't connect them with the employers. Right. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And then if you did want to start your own network, you know, I'm happy to tell you, like I just, all the things that we've needed to do to get there. So this is our, this is what we hand out to, I can't remember if this is the employer or the employee, the employer. So again, it's trying to help them understand what DPC is, and that we are primary care. We're not a urgent care clinic, that's using some of the same terminology. It's all docs. And then this is kind of like a value proposition. We think, their experience is going to be better, their health is going to be better, and their costs are going to be better. So trying to think about what the value is for an employer. And a lot of this, all of this is on our website, by the way, which is TRIDPC.com. So it's definitely all out there. And then, again, this is where we're just talking about, here are the benefits, like, pay for what you use. Some of these other companies that are coming in, they're saying everybody joins for $65 PMPM, and you have to pay for everybody, whether they choose DPC or not. That's one of the big things. I don't know if you've heard of Marathon Health. Yeah. And then there's something called Our Health, and Our Health was bought out by Marathon recently.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And
didn't know
mostly
that.
by private equity. Yeah. Which I think is important to know who's the owner. Yep. And it's private equity firm. So mainly, yeah. And Marathon used to be more of an on-site, near site, and now they definitely represent themselves as DPCs, but it's a very different plan type. So this is what we do for employers, and then what we encourage them to hand out to their employees. And I think this one's even more important. Basically, because direct primary care, they're kind of like, I don't understand. Are you a specialist? Do I just go to you when I need something, like a doc in the box? Are you my telehealth doctor? So we really have to give a lot. I mean, talk about communication and working. I mean, most of these companies, I meet with them 6-7 times. And then they always were like, can we have Dr. Mechley come on a Zoom call and talk to my CFO now, and then talk to my HR now? And I'm like, well, Dr. Mechley's a doctor, so she's got to go to doctoring. But how about if we do one call with everybody together? It's interesting, because there's just a lot of questions. And I've done this so many times for brokers and TPAs too. They're like, can you come on this call and help? I can't explain it to this client. So I'm trying to get, and I've got some, but kind of more of a baseline of these well-informed TPA account executives and certain brokers that I know are forward thinking, that have heard us talk so many times that they could probably do that. But unfortunately, what happens in the beginning is they're like, I'm really not sure. And they'll tell people information that is not true. Like, oh yeah, everybody has to pay for it. I'm like, no. Or, oh yeah. And then I have to come back and kind of correct things. So I have found that I put a lot of time and effort in the early relationship part with some of these companies just to get it right. So again, that would be something else if you're thinking about doing a network, there really has to be kind of a forward person who's meeting and talking, and almost like a sales role too, with a lot of the companies, just to really help them through until this becomes the norm. And that's where we're like, if this becomes like everybody wants this, we're better than we were 2 or 3 years ago, I can tell you for sure. I don't know how many summits I talked at, how many innovation summits for companies, how many benefit summits I went to, because here's somebody in DPC who's going to talk about DPC, and every year they have me back, and I never have seen one client from any one of these sign on. And they're like, we want you to come back. I'm like, so finally I was like, listen, I'll come back, but you got to take our material and put our material in your offerings, you know, when you go out. So it's been a process, and I've learned a lot, which, like, again, through this, I'm happy to share. So anyway, so this is the employee, and it's like, again, why should I do this? Why is it different? And so we kind of try to help explain that. And then I think this is one of the most important pieces, is what is included. Most people don't really understand. So, and this is critical both from a legal perspective as well as a communication and engagement perspective. You know, what am I getting here? So all of our doctors in our affiliate program, or our affiliates under our you know, sign that contract, say, yes, this is exactly what I will do for those patients on a regular and routine basis. And again, this is out in our website. So so those are the two pieces that I think are probably more critical. I'm going to go back and look to see if there's, I mean, I have a piece that it goes right to brokers. I have a piece that goes to the affiliates, and a bunch of other marketing pieces that took us a while to produce. But I think those are probably the key learnings, you know, the key areas of where you'd say, if you know, as you're going out to talk to employers or brokers and TPAs, those are the things they're going to want from you. But you know, Phil, I'm sorry,
Could
go
you
ahead.
talk a little bit? So when I met with you, whenever that was, a month or two ago,
We had our little cups.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So you were telling me about the number of and nature of the practices that were what you call affiliates. Could you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah. So right now we have 9 affiliates signed on. There are multiple other ones who are considering, I should say. I think it's interesting what's going on in the Cincinnati area. There's a lot of shifts happening in primary care. There's been a lot of people that have shifted into these boutique practices, and I'm sure some of them are like, I'm not sure if this is really what I want to be doing. So there's just people in flux. So anyway, sorry, I digress. There's 9 of us. So we have 5 locations, 9 docs. We have, you know, Kentucky, the most northern is up in Mason. So we're kind of, we really focused on the 275 loop, but there've been docs that we have declined. You're not declined, but you know, they wouldn't meet the criteria. So we have a single price point. Everybody has to agree to the same price point. And because we can't say here it is, and then we're gonna have different people being paid differently. So it's like, this is what you're gonna do, and this is what the companies are gonna pay, and it has to be the same because of the ERISA law. You can charge different companies different things, but the same company has to be charged the same. And then you can decide, we're gonna offer this many. I mean, if you had you know, people, you know, if we had different geographic areas, and they would say, okay, well, all of our people are going to go up to a doc in Mason, then I have to say, well, let me, when we do our presentations, and we want to make sure where their needs are, and do we have, you know, docs to match and things like that. So so right now we have my other monitor, I'm sorry, is like having spasms, so I don't unplug it. There we go. I'm still here. Okay. So sorry, Larry, I kind of lost track of time. So right now that's kind of where our geography is. And like I said, I've got a few people, like some in California, some in, I don't think the Arizona one's going to work, to be honest with you. I've had calls for people in a lot of different areas, and it's been interesting to say, yeah, we can actually use our mechanism to help you guys do this and you know, work with these employers. But those are not signed.
So Pat and Phil, I'm wondering if you have questions.
Sure.
Ah,
The just pondering. So you got like so you're like a hub, and there's these practices. What all is in the hub?
So the hub is just, we call it TRIDPC. It's really and the hub is legal. So all the contracts, and there are, I think we have 9 contracts. I mean, at first it was like, oh, we just got these 2 contracts. And we realized, well, we need a contract with this person. We need a contract with this person. We need clearly spelled out. So there's, because if I contract with like Beaver Creek Family Medicine, so there would be a contract with that entity, and then like all of your docs don't have to sign up as our affiliates, but I'd have to contract with your entity, and then I'd have to contract with each of the affiliates, because we want to make sure that the affiliates are aware what because there's that thing where the CEO of the network signs up and says, oh, by the way, you're doing this, and the doc's like, I'm doing what? And again, not that Phil, you would do that, but then we make sure that the affiliates have a copy of this is what you're signed on to do. And it's super simple. I mean, I'm making it sound big. It's just to make sure it's compliant. And again, our whole point with the TPC is everything's transparent. So we want to make things really open and easy. So the docs are like, got it. So I need to see these people best I can, same day, next day. I'm doing well visits, I'm doing chronic care, I'm doing this. Okay, got it. It's all things that they know that they're already doing in their DPC. We actually truly slimmed it down. And then it's like, if you want to do more, I use this example, we do all of our own dermatology, because Eleanor and I have been on faculty, and we like procedures. So we do a lot of that. Those are not included. And so those are additional cash for those members, because I can't say that all of my affiliates will do derm, all their derm work. So it's really important that the same, and there's a really important clauses that come out of the ERISA law, that you're offering the same benefit to every employee that they can get in these different areas.
So with that particular example, then the people that have the contract from their employer to you, and they're in your office, and you offer to do a skin thing, how does that work?
And honestly, it's easy for us, because for all of our patients, most of our procedures are a little bit more. And again, I can talk about money. We just charge $40. I mean, it's no big deal, but it's like $600 at a dermatologist's office, $40 here. I'm just paying for my, usable equipment. I'm paying for my processes. I'm paying for a little bit. So we just, again, with all of our stuff, we figure out what our actual costs are. There's a small margin. And then, so I just, those patients, I just say,
it's just how does the patient find out that it's a separate charge, and how does that work?
So that's another contract. When the employee signs that contract, very clearly, these are the things that are included. So if they come in and they want like acupuncture, like Eleanor, she doesn't do it very much anymore, but she used to do acupuncture. And she's like, hey, do you do acupuncture? I really want acupuncture. Then we say, great, it's going to be this much dollars, because that's not included in your membership fee that's paid through your employer.
Okay, is that like something in the waiting room, or something like Valvoline has?
No, what we try to do is for us, we try to make things, you're right, upcharge. No, we try to make things very, very simple. So I've talked to all of our affiliates. Most of our affiliates don't do extra stuff. We're probably one of the offices that do a lot more. And then for my normal patients, it's the same thing. So it's not like I have to remember this is an employer patient. We just, our membership fee includes all 100% family medicine. This almost any procedure is over, but like EKGs for us are included in the membership fee. And I kind of not fought for this, but I was like, we're going to include that for everybody in our employer package. And I had to go around and make sure, when you sign on, do you have an EKG machine? Are you okay making sure that the EKGs are included? You're not going to charge more. And I haven't found any DPC doc who charges for an EKG yet. I mean, everybody does things a little differently, but
yeah, but that's part of the contract from the hub to the entity. Like Beaver Creek Family Practice would have a contract that says you'll include EKGs and UA dipsticks or whatever.
And that has to be identical. So what's in the affiliate agreement, which is in the affiliate company agreement, which is in the employer agreement, is the employer agreement, it has to be identical. You can't even have one thing missing, because that's when you're saying that my communication is solid all the way through. Yeah. And so the employee has it in their hand, the affiliate has it in their hand. Yeah. So in changing that is, people like, can you throw this in? I'm like, like an employer will be like, well, I want to do this. I'm like, that's great, but that would cause a ripple. And then people would have to remember, for this one employee group, I now include this, this, and this. So I try to help them understand that. And then I'll say, well, here's different ways of, so we got workarounds for that. You try to just keep things as simple as possible. It's like, you know, when we were in fee-for-service practice, I could care less what your insurance was. I wasn't going to treat you any differently. That's my front desk. You know, if you had to get this as this, I was, you know, so it's the same thing. I don't want the docs thinking about, oh, for you, I'm going to do this, but not this. It's pretty consistent.
Okay. And the affiliate contracts, do they limit the practices in any way?
No. So we made sure of that. So what we make sure is our affiliate contracts basically say you can affiliate with anybody else you want. We're not the only game in town. You can, in no way are we keeping you from doing any other business with whatever you want to do. You're just agreed that you're for the patients that we bring you under these employer contracts, you are willing to, you know, see them within 30 days. They can fire them. You know, you can fire a patient. I really was adamant about that. There's no, you know, and then that's on us. If they get fired, we've got to go back and say, because then we can say you can switch to possibly another DPC, or like, that's when I get involved a little bit. What was the reason? We've never had it happen, but what was the reason for the patient to be fired? And if it was very egregious, I'd go back and say, you know, I would like you to just take this person off of this benefit plan because we can't, because of what they've done, or something like that. Because we went through that. There are so many, there's COBRA, you know, if people go quit their job and they're on COBRA, there's all kind of scenarios that rarely happen, but you have to have a plan for.
Yeah. So how does the, go ahead, Phil.
About labs, imaging specialists, any kind of
So-
deals with those folks, or is that all outside the network?
I have it outside of the membership. So like the membership is exactly what we can do inside, and it's what we can control. And then like you guys, do you have cash-based labs through LabCorp or Quest or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've talked to employers about that, and I said that is an add-on, and that's a little bit of a higher complexity. So that would be, you know, and what we can do is try to pass on those things, but I would then have to go through and make sure that, you know, the order has to come, you know how it works, it has to come back. So whether, and we haven't done it yet. Well, I have done it in my own personal practice. I haven't done it on the TRIDPC level. And I'll be honest with you, I would stay away from that for a while, because it adds another complexity. And just for the employer and everybody else to grasp this first stage, they quickly get distracted. And then they start going off on these tangents about, well, we can't do it because we can't do labs. And I'm like, oh, you just threw out everything, this whole huge, wonderful thing that we've been working on, because you want to do the cash-based labs, and you know, you're worried that patients are going to still go to Quest and not LabCorp. I mean, you know, I mean, they'll go into, and I found that, you know, when you're, especially when you're introducing something new, best advice is to keep it very simple, keep your message simple. No, have that 2-minute elevator pitch down, who you are, what you offer, this is what's important. Keep them focused on that. There's just so many small details that people can get into, and until they grasp and really come on to understand where the value lies, and then they're like, gosh, this is, because most people, they're looking for the out. They're saying, this is too good to be true. You're not telling me something. I'm going to get signed up here, and my employees are going to be up in my grill because there's, you know, and, you know, I just continue to try to point them back to, this has been widely successful. We've been doing it now for, you know, 4 years, and we're continuing to grow. Places across the nation have been doing it much longer. This isn't, you know what I mean? But it's, for them, it's cutting edge and it's new. So I'd keep it simple. But Phil, yes, you can do all of those add-ons. You would just have to make sure and ensure that's consistently offered all the way through. So if you, and then the thing is, like, let's say this company signs on and they have 3 people up in Chillicothe, and you're like, okay, so I've got to find now somebody in Chillicothe, or you don't have to be honest with you, you can offer it to everyone, and you say this is part of the, and if the person can't take it, they just don't take it. Because what I usually almost always tell people is you need to offer multiple plans. But then I say, you know, in the meantime, I can try to find somebody up there, but then whatever you've offered has to be equivalent when you sign on anyone else for that company. I think I've made that abundantly clear. So
Yeah.
So how does the hub make money?
So what we do is we will contract for a certain price. We'll take a percentage of that for all of our administration, and then everything else gets passed on to the doc. So we just live off that kind of what's wrapped up. I've looked at and I've worked a lot of different business plans where there's what a lot of TPAs do is they'll do a PEPM fee, a network fee, they'll do all these different fees. On a business model, I was like, hey, that makes sense. I just felt like we were looking and acting too much like nickel here, dime here, nickel here, dime, 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 nickel. And I just felt like for us, it would just felt much better to be completely transparent. Here's what it's going to cost. It's easy to understand. I do a full business performer where I can show them exactly where their monies are coming in and where I think that, you know, the savings is going to be based upon their last 12 months spend, which is huge when it comes to them to understand the financials. And I can show them very quickly, you know, no other costs, no other this, and then they're like, oh, and everybody kind of relaxes a little bit. So I just find for us, it's simpler to do that and to wrap that in. And it's not, I don't know how much legal background, there's something called fee splitting that you have to be very careful with. And that's if you split your fee with a broker or other person. We're not a broker, we're the entity. And then, you know, so we go out, so that doesn't apply to that, to us, the way we work.
And then so the money comes to the practice from where, and so is it from the hub, or the employer gives the money to the individual practices?
No, the employer does not want to write 16 checks or 4 checks or whatever. They don't want to write checks at all. So it's just, again, you can imagine from administratively, nobody wants to write checks. So again, that's part of that simplification. So the contracting is you know, simplified, and then depending upon how you want to do this, it's either invoice or it's auto pay, and then it comes into usually the network, and then the network then because I need to adjudicate it. I need to make sure that they paid us correctly. I need to make sure that the current enrollment panels are correct. And then I need to make sure that it goes to the right people. And then you put vaccines on top of it, and that's a whole nother layer. So once we instituted vaccines, we were so excited because this has been one of my 4-year, it's like this is the one thing DPC couldn't offer. And I was like, and I think it's important. So the administration that is a little tricky because we're working a whole nother piece of software and a whole other company and things like that. And there's cash-based vaccines, and then there's insurance-based vaccines, et cetera. So sorry, I just did what I told you not to do, is get to a sidebar. So that's a sidebar. But Pat, did I answer? Yeah, it comes from, so that the contract is direct with the company. I tell my TPAs and brokers that I do not contract with a TPA. I do not contract with a broker. I contract with the company. You put my contract in your SPD. I do not pay you anything, broker at TPA, because there'll be a lot of people that want to set it up differently. It has to, in my opinion, for DPC to work, it has to be clean. So the employer pays us. Sometimes the employer will pay through the TPA because the TPA is the holder of their funds for a self-funded plan. That's fine because they're paying on behalf of the employer, but my contract is with the employer. That's actually a critical piece. If that doesn't make sense, I'll go through that again. It's
that's all right. So then the money, the practice gets one check from TRIDPC with a list of the names that are covered there.
Right. So they can double check. They can make sure that they're on their end, it's good. And so if one affiliate has maybe 6 companies, they'll get one check from us, but it'll be, you know, from anybody they're taking care of in those 6 companies. Or if they only have 1 company, you know, so it's nice. They just get the check from from TRIDPC from anybody that they're taking care of from all those different companies.
Okay. And then so the practice like downloads it in, say, let's say we have Hint Health. So we take those numbers and load them in at that rate. So if we have people at other rates, is that easy to do? I don't know if it's easy to do or not easy to do.
Do you have the Hint Enterprise software, or do you have each individual Hint practice software?
I have the individual Hint practice software.
Okay, so what we did is we purchased the enterprise software, and then that way we can have it's like a tiered system. So then I can give any of my affiliates a Hint piece of software if they don't have it, and then
Okay.
they'll see all of those in Hint, and then I can put all of your stuff into your Hint software.
I get you. So it's a Hint interface with a download.
Yes. Yes. And they can ingest all of the enrollment files, which is really important. And then there are limitations to it. I mean, you can't pay your affiliates through Hint. You still have to cut checks and things like that. There's still some upgrades that need to happen for that. But yes, that's the kind of the oversight. So when you get the enterprise one, then you can do all this up here and then drop it down into the lower ones, so people
Okay.
can see. But you
So-
can't actually pay through Hint, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. So
Okay.
what's the toughest part for the new affiliate members?
Really not much, because what we want them to do is practice as they have and just get more people in their practice. Probably, well, if people don't know us, you know, because right now most of us know me, and they hopefully they trust me. You know, we've had a long-term relationship. Then people are saying things like, "Is this too good to be true? What's really?" I'm like, "Look here, this is all we do. This is what we do. You know, it doesn't cost you to come on." So, I think the hardest part for the affiliates is, you know, probably in the beginning, before we were really smooth, we were sending them one contract at a time or one piece of information at a time. That was probably the hardest. Now we've got it into one packet. So that's why my mind went right to that, but we've actually solved for that. I don't think there really is much, because we're bringing somebody up on the vaccine system, that's been, but I go out personally and I make sure, because that vaccine inventory, I don't want it, that is a huge responsibility. So I want to make sure the refrigerators are good, stuff like that. Again, I'm going to those things. From an affiliate perspective, it really isn't, our affiliates have been quiet as mice, to be honest with you. I go out and we'll text them or talk to them, and I'll say, how much more room do you have? We've got this other contract coming up. What do you think? And we can set okay, once this person reaches this, we shut off their numbers. So all 100 people can't sign up with one doc, which I have to explain to the employers, because they might be like, you know, Pat and Phil, that's all we want. And I'll be like, okay, you have 600 people. Pat and Phil don't have 600 spots. But I can tell you that, I mean, what I can say right now is I personally know all these doctors in my affiliate, and they're good doctors. And that's again why we go through a kind of a, you know, we know the people.
Yeah.
And I want to stay that small. I don't want to get too big. I want to make sure that we can, I shouldn't say that. I just want to be able to be in community. Yeah. So I don't know, Pat, is there something you're thinking about that would be difficult? I was kind of stumped by that question, to be honest with you. I know. I'm like, what's hard for the affiliates? I was like, I don't, you know, I try to make things really easy for them.
Standard interview question. So,
Yeah. You got me.
So how about the vaccines? So how's the money flow on the vaccines? And people are really different about vaccines.
You mean people are different, meaning?
I mean, the practices. So you got to practice, you got certain ages of people, you got certain number of vaccines. There's a stock of certain numbers, and then there's expiration dates and things.
No, it's a huge liability that we could never take on. So we work with a company called VAX Care, and VAX Care won't work with you if you're under so much, because they make their money through the insurance. That they make a percentage off of everything that they put through. So I had tried to talk with them. Eleanor tried to talk with them multiple times years ago, and we finally said, what is it going to take? And they're like, we need this number. So what we found out is, if we can come together under the affiliate and I can represent all of us as a one entity, then they'll work with us. So I'm just one entity to them with lots of locations. So what we do to bring on a new affiliate who wants vaccines, and that's actually the place in Indiana is the one that I think they're going to be affiliate. They don't really want employers, patients. They just want the vaccine part. I'm like, that's fine. So, because I just am so excited that we got this. So basically with the vaccine, we do an analysis of the company. So I created a spreadsheet that's going to tell me how many people in your practice, at what age groups are they, and then I created an analysis, say on average, these are the number of vaccines that are typically given in a you know. So yeah, so shingles should be given over the age of 50 times 2, you know, but not every year, you know, so it's only for that one person, you know. So there, I created a formula spreadsheet that I can plug in your numbers and it'll give an approximation of what kind of vaccines you might go through.
Yeah.
And then I look at your demographics, say what percentage of do you have that are insurance based, you know, what are Medicaid, Medicare, no insurance. And then I can represent that to VAX Care. And right now that's what I had to do to get VAX Care on board. VAX Care is already on board. So I just added another affiliate last week, and all I needed to do was have them fill that out and really give them the demographics. And then that's a new shipping location for us. So, so it's really just going through that process, and we'll kind of estimate how many vaccines we think you'll use. And then you get your refrigerator and your freezer. Those are not cheap. And I would not cheap there. You get a good refrigerator with an alarm. And again, we've already done best practices. Here's the ones we recommend. You can get whatever you like, but you're ultimately responsible for that inventory if something goes wrong, with a bunch of our protection around it, because we can't be there to make sure that somebody doesn't trip over the plug and you go home and the freezer is unplugged, you know. So that liability does lie with the practice, but we make sure that, you know, best practices, et cetera, et cetera. But the company, VAX Care, if it's expired, they bring it back. So we're not responsible for expired. We're not responsible for overstock. We're not responsible for, because that was always my concern is, you know, you've got these expensive vaccines and they're going to expire. That, and then the whole refrigerator getting shut off, you know, that's a big freak out. So that is a liability. I've always represented people that is liability. You should see, we check ours twice a day. When I leave, I turn off all the lights and my eyeballs go on the freezer, and then I go on as I walk out the door. I'm like, I look at your numbers, you're on, and then I go out. And again, we've all set up for COVID. As soon as we get the COVID vaccine, we're all set up because we've got everything we need from the state of Ohio under this program, which is really good.
And how's the cash flow go on the vaccines?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm in more logistics. So the cash flow is basically the people who use insurance, and you use insurance, and so you put everybody's insurance information in, and we can tell you how to do that between or whatever EMR you have. Well, that's a whole nother story. Sorry. You basically, if they're insurance based, VAX Care will adjudicate that yes, this person is A-okay to vaccinate, gives them a check, says their insurance is taken. So in that way, what VAX Care does is bill their insurance, and then that's taken care of. If it's a cash based, then you as a practice have to carry the cash or get the cash for it, and then you pay us back, because TRIDPC is actually paying on your behalf for those vaccines. So then we then send out an invoice to you, say, here's all the cash vaccines that you gave, and then you make sure you're collecting cash that day from the patient. So basically it bills. There's no real, right now for TRIDPC, there's no real increase in revenue for the practices for vaccines. It's just the fact of having vaccines and offering them to the practice. There's a small administration fee that we take to run all this for TRIDPC, because you can imagine how much time and effort we put into it. So currently we're having that, again, being straightforward, after a year or so, once we get our feet underneath us, if there is a margin, we want to pass that on. But right now we don't know, to be honest with you, because the only administration we get is we get a little bit from anything that goes through insurance. So everything else is kind of more or less a little bit of a pass through. So again, it just depends. Like I've got 40% cash-based patients in my practice, and the cash-based prices are much higher than you get at the health department. So a lot of the times I'm sending people to the health department to get those. But if they really need them, like our TDAP is great. So if somebody needs a TDAP, they usually tend to pay for it right in my office. But you know, anyway, I can go through all that. But
Amy,
does that make sense?
If it's at all helpful, VAX Care is Wanda Filer.
Is what? I'm sorry?
VAX Care, their chief medical officer is Wanda Filer, past president of AAFP.
Oh.
I don't even know if that's helpful with this, but I'd be happy to connect you.
Well, we're there. We're in now. I would have loved that 2 years ago. We're good. We're in now. And so VAX Care is a national company. They're out of Florida, and you have to work through your local reps. And they, for the longest time, would not work with DPCs. They would not work with cash-based practices because they make their money off of insurance. So for them, it wasn't smart. And then we really just had to get enough bulk to say we're worth it. and that they've been happy with us because we kind of just went through, we were kind of considered a test phase. So I feel like, but thank you in case there was any concern. I appreciate you knowing that you have an in, because I just think, again, it's just one of those things that is important for us, because so many of my patients, my vaccination rate went so high, afterwards, because people are like, oh yeah, it's right here, I'll do it. Like our flu shot rate was just so obviously so much better. So
can you go back to that example you just gave? There's a cash person that pays you for the vaccine.
so
So
yeah, so
tell me
I've
about the money flow, like who pays for that vaccine, and who makes the money, who puts it in the bank, or who pays the hub for it? What happens with that particular that tiny little process?
Yeah. So TRIDPC does pay, you said hub, TRIDPC does pay for the software, and we pay for the hub. So in your office, you would have a hub that's a VAX Care hub, and it's this cute little iPad on the little stand, and you put it right next to your refrigerator freezer, and you scan them out. So when you scan it out, you have to choose the patient, scan it out as a cash pay patient.
Yeah.
It'll say, not accepted, or you put it as cash pay patient. We preloaded what we need to collect for cash pay patients. So you'll know what you need to charge that person. And so however you charge, so if most of us, if we're using Hint, they have a credit card on file. So we just say, the flu shots we were selling for $25 this year, so it was a $25 fee. So we would print out from the VAX Care software, you print out a thing that says you are, cash pay, you agree to pay this, you sign it, and then you guys would invoice them through Hint. The end of the month, I have a report that says, okay, Phil's practice did 16 flu shots at $25. I send you that invoice and say, Phil, here's those things that you did cash for. You should have already collected that money. So it should be sitting, because you collected that day from Hint.
Mhm.
Then your office manager, whoever, I would, don't trust me, but don't trust me, because I'm doing it on the software. Go, yep, those are our same records. Those are the people. And yes, we were able to, because we want to make sure you collected on it too. Well, you should make sure. And then you would just send a check up to us to TRIDPC, because we are covering that under the cash-based thing, and we're paying VAX Care for that, because we have to pay as the one entity. Again, they don't want to deal with 16 different practices. They want to deal with one, which is why we're representing ourselves as that one. So that's how the cash base works. How the insurance works is then you just check out the thing in the hub. It says yes, insurance. If VAX Care says, and I'm going to get into details here real quick, if VAX Care says yes, you can do it, they're good, then they do all of what they need to do. And then if there's a discrepancy, they'll work directly with the person. So you should not be involved, because I was like, I do not want to be involved in insurance, trying to fight for something. Now, of course, we on our behalf will print out things and do things for our patients. But and then that VAX Care gets paid directly from them, and then it comes through, and there's a small administration fee that comes back through TRIDPC, and that's what the majority of it all goes, to VAX Care. And then there are patients who will say they have insurance, but they're not currently in the VAX Care system. So VAX Care basically says you have to think about them as a cash-based patient. But if you, it's confused. It's not real confusing once you see it. The patient agrees that they still want the vaccine, but they know that they might be liable for it. And so you have to put a credit card in to cover that. So you don't actually collect those patients. You have to put a credit card in VAX Care's hub. VAX Care says we'll go after the insurance, but if the insurance doesn't cover it, we're going to charge the patient the cash-based price.
Yeah.
Because it's not all encompassing. And we have to constantly tell patients, we cannot guarantee your insurance will do anything. Because as you know, we never can guarantee your insurance will do anything. But if you have an MEC plan.
It's pretty tight. So do the practices lose money on doing the vaccines?
No, I mean, straightforward, your outlay is in your refrigerator and your freezer.
Yeah.
That is an outlay. Absolutely. And at first I wasn't, I'm like, but for us, I was like, I just really think it's important. I mean, I don't know if you're both family medicine, right?
Yeah.
With kiddos. So it was just really important for us to have those childhood vaccines. So we were like, okay, that makes sense. We're doing that. TRIDPC covers the cost of the software and the hub. And then there's time, there's resources. So your nurse or whoever's going to be giving the vaccines, my well child checks, you definitely add another 5 to 10 minutes, because we're doing the vaccine. So I think of workflow and things like that. Again, just thinking the whole process through.
So do they lose money doing the vaccines?
We haven't lost any money. So, but I mean, I don't know. So Pat, that's what I was saying. If you say, have I recouped the capital that I put into my freezer and you know, I didn't amortize it that way. You know, I just accept the fact that I'm putting in capital to buy a freezer, a great freezer and refrigerator. So, but I don't lose money on vaccines, but I had to outlay that expense, if that makes sense.
Okay, but you're not making any money.
I'm not bringing in any revenue for having the vaccines in my office right now.
Okay.
No,
I
it's
just
more of a
wanted to-
service.
That's what I heard. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. VAX Care is making the majority of the money, but for the honor of having vaccines in my office, I was like, fine. I'm like, you make that money. I can offer these vaccines, you know, to, I mean, our Medicare patients are covered for the pneumococcal and the flu. You know, Medicare won't cover shingles, but the secondary sometimes does, and they've got a whole system for that. COVID vaccines, as you know, are free. So we're really excited about getting those in. But no, it's not a revenue generator. I would not look at it as a revenue generator for your practice at all. And I would look at making sure that you're comfortable with the outlay of the initial capital for the fridge freezer. But outside of that, like I said, you're still paying your nurse. And so if your nurse is doing vaccines, they're not doing something else. So it depends upon how you run your business, thinking about that from a resource allocation. But you're not losing money. You're not spending money out. Unless you would
It
unplug the
depends on how
freezer.
depends on how you allocate your money.
Right. Depends.
Sounds like a money loser to me. It's a liability thing. It's a personnel thing. It's a time thing. So it's one of those things you balance off with the number of members, the extra members that you get because you're doing vaccines and so forth. But it's just one of those. So it's kind of a dead weight potential or an exciting marketing thing potential.
Yeah. Right. I would definitely not look at it. It is. And right. I can tell you that a lot of our families with kids, because we used to send them all to the health department or to urgent care centers to get their vaccines with pharmacies. The ones with little kids are like, I don't want to go anywhere else. I want to come here. So, I mean, it is a differentiator for us.
Yeah, and they'd be pretty happy.
They just feel so
How
much better
about
getting vaccines.
how about your other services like chemical dependency, social work? Is there some kind of hub potential in the future for having some kind of anchor service thing for that kind of stuff, mental health, et cetera?
Yeah, I think we're open to all of that because that's where I think as we scale, it makes more sense to say, hey, could we do this? I've got a great mental health behavioral model that we're actually just started. Dr. Glass and I we're the pilot project, and we are interviewing to have mental health behavioralists in our office. And I think that model would work great for TRIDPC, but we haven't even started. I mean, we literally just started this week and we're interviewing the people that we think we're going to bring on. So I think that is would be an easy next gen thing. Anytime you hire somebody on though, and I wanted this because my practice, I do lifestyle medicine. I wanted a health coach in my practice. If I'm paying their salary, I've got to make sure they're busy from the start and I've got to cover that. So I think there's a lot of different creative ways of doing this that we can from a scale.
Have you thought about having a pharmacy in the network?
We looked at that. We looked at that actually a lot. And there's with GoodRx and other things like that, there's really the margin's not there. Two of our practices have in-house pharmacies. Actually, three of the practices have in-house pharmacies, and they've all said the same thing. They're like, from the expense, and it's nice to be able to hand people medicines there, but they're paying just as much or more than people would be getting it from like GoodRx and places like that. Okay. So I'm open. I think it would be open to it because it's nice, but it's kind of the thing that being there and getting that, but they're finding more of their shelves get expired. They're finding there's just a lot of waste there, and they're like I said, 40% of my patients don't have insurance, so we're always looking at GoodRx, and so far that's been really great. And there hasn't been anything else that would be an expense like insulin or inhalers. We can't get better deals than that's out there. So there hasn't been a big play, but things change, and so definitely open to that. But that's what I found for most independent DPCs. because that was a big thing in the beginning when we were starting. I was like, oh, I got the barcode reader and I've got all this new software, now we can do this. And then once we really kind of penciled out, that was one thing we said, let's wait and see how it goes, and we'll add that in year 2. And then by the time we did, we were like, yeah. I don't, do you guys do that? Do you guys have in-house medications?
No, we looked at it too, and it just didn't seem cost effective. But I was wondering if you had a network, if it would be cost effective. But if you already run the numbers, it sounds like it isn't. So.
I have, yeah, and again, I haven't done a real deep dive, because you can imagine how much time and energy is spent just to get the stuff that we've done already. But we're getting to the point now where I feel like we can start looking at some of this, like what else could we do? Even from a buying perspective, I'll be honest, you know, Amazon has been good, bad, or indifferent, better than most of some of our group purchasing organizations for certain things. But we've tried to look at that, like, could we get things in bulk and then pass it out to everybody? And how would we do that? And again, we'd have to have administration centrally that I'd have to pay for. So I'd have to say, okay, now I'm going to take a certain percentage off of everybody's stuff, or we're going to have to bring in other revenue. Is this really going to work? And is it a benefit for everybody? So I think, again, listening to, and it's nice. I mean, it's not like I'm a not practicing doc. I am one of the affiliates. I was the third one signed on as an affiliate. So, you know, listening to everybody saying, here's what we're struggling with, or here's what we would love to have is great. Because then we can say, you know, and I love, you know, I don't stay still. So if somebody's got a good idea, I'll pencil it out, make sure it works for everybody. But any other thoughts, you know, from a value add?
A bunch of them. So I'm generally early adopter. So I did have that prescription stuff in the practice for like 8 months or something like that, and said, ooh. And that was right when the $4 thing hit, like a month later.
Oh yeah, Kroger's $4. Yeah, you're like, dang.
I'm in the burbs, right next door to a mall, right next door to the Sewing Medical Center, and suddenly there's like, it seemed like 100 pharmacies within 20 feet who were doing the $4 things.
Or free, Meyer. It's actually free. You're like, hey, wow, okay, I can't beat free.
It kind of wiped down. Also, take care of a bunch of Ehlers-Danlos patients, and they have unique kind of needs. And I'm an early adopter on the COVID stuff, so I actually treat people with coronavirus with an ivermectin protocol. And I'm on a hotline for the state of Ohio. People call every day whose doctors refuse to prescribe ivermectin, even though there's 42 randomized controlled trials that show incredible evidence. At least 14 of them have incredible evidence of the benefit for the ivermectin. So how's the network relate to weirdos who are suddenly doing something different?
Well, I think, again, if you look at what we're having you sign, what we have the affiliate sign, it's saying that, you know, I'm not in trouble, I'm holding a license, I'm practicing medicine, I can do all the things that are here.
Yeah.
Then if you want to do something else, you are practicing medicine the way that you are practicing medicine. That patient can decide, this is the right doctor for me, or this is not the right doctor for me. So they can switch, you can fire them, all of those things. So you need to practice. So I wouldn't say if somebody's doing something, there is one practice that we don't affiliate with nurse practitioners at this time. We've just decided to stay with physicians. It's I think a clear statement for, you know, our employers to say, yes, we're all physicians.
Right.
There was a nurse practitioner in town that wanted to possibly affiliate, and again, she was doing IV vitamin treatments, and I know. So, and I've got a second, you know, double board in lifestyle medicine. So, and I was the wellness director for Christ Hospital. So I love looking at what is the evidence, where are we going? There's a lot of stuff out there, you know, mindfulness base is huge and all this, you know, but I'm like, show me the evidence, show me. And so it's, I would say curating this community is really important to me. So if somebody's doing something that is curious, I'll just put it that way, I would personally, this is just me, I would just go and ask them, like, what's going on? Tell me more, teach me, because there might be something really cool here. But if it's something like, you know, I've looked at the ivermectin, I decided not to prescribe. And I've actually looked at that, is it ISCCS? I can't remember, ICSS.
It's the flcct.net.
Thank
also,
you.
one of the best Cochrane researchers in the UK put together Cochrane review report on that, which strongly supports using ivermectin, and actually would say things slightly against doctors who won't respond favorably to randomized controlled trials with that level of proof.
I've not read the Cochrane data, but at the time I did read some of the studies, and I read and I talked to 2 patients who were asking me about it. And my opinion at the time was that I was not comfortable. I said, I have read all the information, and I said, and there are a lot of other guidance out there. I mean, that you can, the hydrochloroquine, not to get into too much. I said, this is just, we're in a position that it is the time to act now, but there are still risks and benefits, and we have to think about those. So I was just very clear. I just told her that I didn't feel comfortable prescribing it because I didn't, you know, and we talk about scope of practice. I felt like it was just beyond my scope, but I said, here's some infectious disease physicians that I can send you to. Here's some other doctors. So I gave her some options of going elsewhere. But again, that was just my particular comfort with that literature. But I did go out and I did read, and I think it's and I told her, I said, honestly, there were 87 trials concurrently with 87 different medications out there, all of which showed promise at the time. So I said, but I'm not prescribing any of them. So I said, you know, that we need to keep our eye out on what is trending and being helpful. And it was a critical time, and I don't, you know, we'll see later on, like you said, you know, hopefully, luckily, any of my patients, no one has had any significant ill effects. But if I would have had a patient that would have, you know, gone into the ICU, and I think, you know, and that's the stuff we deal with, as you know, as physicians every day. You know, are we really doing the right thing? So
yeah, I'm just curious about how fast the network can learn.
Well, and I think
if the
again,
network would respond to randomized controlled trials that are put together in a way that shows there's a 78% less admission with ivermectin protocol and 83% less death, would that have meaning to the network?
Again, Pat, again, I would love to talk to you offline, because that's not the way I read that literature. But so
I'll send it to you.
Please.
It's been upgraded, and it's like it'll punch you in the face, because it's been organized by an incredibly top level researcher with kind of irrefutable assessment.
I haven't seen, like I said, the Cochrane summary. I've read individual promising, but I've also read a number of disparate good data. So I'd be interested in that, but I think I just want to make sure
we're good.
Oh, no, the community is not, it's affiliated community for, you know, distributing patients to good docs. It's not so much like a learning, but at the same time, I think we can cultivate that. But I would have no, again, I can fire somebody, you know, it's my company, so I can fire somebody, and that's in the contract if I feel like there's, but I have no, I very clearly in the contract says we do not tell you how to practice medicine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's I think that is a critical piece for an independent family medicine physician. Yeah, it's just giving backbone.
You get a lot of good different scope of practices in a group like that.
Yeah, because they're all, I mean, think about it, we're all these entrepreneurs who decided that we wanted to, for whatever reason, do the things that we felt were most important. So you're going to get a strong group, but like I said, there's a few people that I really felt could not comfortably be in our group for multiple reasons, and that's okay. You know, that's all right. And some of it was very obvious from price point. Some of it was, you know, I may or may not do that. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, we can't work with that. You know, I can't work with, you're going to go out of town for 2 months and not have coverage. Won't do that.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not a good deal.
Right,
and
right.
So on the website, is the price point listed, what people pay for it?
No, we can't do that.
Okay.
No. Yeah. So that's all. Yeah, that's
like
all part of
our practice. It's on our website.
Oh, our website it is. Yeah. My website is everybody's own website. Oh, absolutely. But the TRIDPC one, we can't, because there can be different reasons for different price points depending upon different companies. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. No, but on our website it is. Yeah. So I think it's really cool too, because that's what the thing with people are there from an employer perspective and they lose their job or they quit. I've had that happen many times, and they're like, yeah, but I'm staying. I'm like, great. You just switch over to our other contract because you're all in. That's the nice thing. It's just recruiting people to good practices and then keeping those practices solid. So sorry, I told my husband, I'm like, I want to be about a half an hour. I have no idea what time it is because I'm not even looking, but
Oh,
as you can see, I'm not one for I just love this stuff. And I just think it's so important. And I think us coming together and saying, you know, how might we do this in a way that we can just keep creating this solid foundation. So this way it works really well for us. We've got a happy group. We've got really happy employers. We're getting a lot more attention. And it's not as much of a struggle. I can be honest with you, as 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was like, I just, you know, everyone was like, I don't understand. You know, everything was difficult. And now I think we've really gotten to a place where the employers are well, and it's too, you can point to say, here's the other employers in the group. So you're not the first one, you're not the second one, you're not the third one, you're not the fourth one. So that's been really helpful too.
you've done the
Two
hard
quick
work,
questions.
like Garrison Bliss type thing. You had to fight a lot of fights.
I appreciate it, but I'm not even close. I think I spent time with him. I actually went and visited him in Seattle, and he let me come up to his office, and I hung out with him for like 4 hours. And I called him on the phone, and we would talk. He said, I can't remember, this was way back. He'd say, I can't remember if it was Wednesdays or Thursdays. He's like, that's the day I'm in my office and I'm not seeing patients. He said, you can call me then. And I'm like, okay. And we would talk and talk. That man, and again, I haven't talked to him in probably 8 years, but when I went out there, I brought him like a Reds t-shirt, and I brought him all this stuff because I was like, I feel like you've given me more than you can imagine, because it was just a lot. Some of it was this kind of talk, like, this is what I struggled with, this is what I think is important, but some of it was just connecting doc to doc about heartfelt struggles of, you know, taking care of patients and things. So that name just kind of pulls on my heartstrings. So he's just, I wish him the best, the absolute best. He's such a cool guy.
So I'm going to pull things to close and say thank you very much, Amy, for what you've done, and thank you for your willingness to share with us this evening. I will
You know what?
promise. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Larry. I apologize. So Brian McGilligan and Becky McGilligan are my partners in TRIDPC. I should have said that in the beginning. I just talked. So the McGilligan practice, which is another DPC here, we ended up going in together. So TRIDPC is owned by both of us. So again, I as soon as you were saying thank you, I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, oh, and my the McGilligan. So Brian has been amazing. Brian is the husband of Becky, who's the doctor. And
Yeah,
Brian,
we know them. They were sort of keynoters at the Unsummit last year.
yeah, they were really involved last year, and I didn't go last year. So Brian has an IT background, so that has been invaluable. He has been able to do a tremendous amount of IT work to pull a lot of this software together and things like that. So sorry, Larry, I just, as soon as you said that,
That's
I was
okay.
like, you're welcome. And more critically, my partners. Yeah, so, and Bex had such a strong practice, you know, with that. So anyway, sorry. Yes, we're ready.